This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by chasingartwork.com. Find art books, enamel pins, signed prints, and canvases all at chasingartwork.com.
That's right. Justin's back.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how a genre gets made. And this is 2025, the year that Running Man takes place. So please, if you haven't listened to this podcast, go and see what your year holds by watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stephen King's The Running Man, Richard Bachman at the time. I have a number of contestants on the show for us today. Lyndon Radchenka.
Hello.
Who is a writer and, by his own admission,
Failure.
a failure. Jonathan Ball, writer and collaborator, also a failure today. One of the winners of the show, Justin, known the world over as Chasing Artwork, Mr. Justin Curry. Welcome, new dad, and winner of today's episode, though you don't know it yet.
What do I
Probably the best contestant on this episode of Year in Review. Dear listener, in the ancient past, we, a year ago, set down what it was we thought we would accomplish and what we thought we would fail at. And we won't force you to go look for that episode, but if you are interested, it is the episode titled Handing Your Homework In Twice on Super Pulp Science. You can go look for it right at the end of 2023, the beginning of 2024. Everyone present today, with the exception of producer extraordinaire Dan Vadeboncoeur, gave some predictions for what they thought they could accomplish. And before you got here, Justin, we listened to the end of that episode where we...
Did it make you happy or did it make
It made me happy.
Yeah.
I am also a winner because I set goals that had nothing to do with creativity
You did not
or business. I set personal...
set vague goals. Vague goals are very achievable.
No, it was to prioritize family and some interpersonal relationships above my career. And I did that. And I'm proud to say that I did that. But to be fair, on a podcast dedicated to creative professionals about how they create things professionally, perhaps it was a bit of a cop-out. I'll give you that. You were the only person last year to say what you were going to do and to do it. Now, we reviewed it. And so when you walked in, I asked if you remember. Yeah. The main thing you said was, my ideas are better than everybody's, and I'm not going to seek out any collaborators, and I'm just going to do what I want.
I'm sure I'd put it more flowery than...
No, that's exactly what you said.
So you really did. I went on a rant, a beautiful soliloquy about how personal relationships are more important to me, and then you said, screw that, business only, and I'm only going to do what I want. So, and you succeeded in that, I believe, in prioritizing your own creative outputs over the suggestions of clients or other people.
Yeah, and it's not... That's, a very blunt way of putting it. My ideas are better than ours. I think just at a certain point, you know what you're really good at, and you know where your passions lie, and you know how to best utilize your time management. And when you're in control of that, you can get so much more out of you that when some new person comes along and they're trying to, fit you in a different shape hole than you are the peg for. And so it's a struggle and projects suffer. And I just had too many big clients where I wanted to do really good work, and just the relationship and the back and forth resulted in something less exciting and something I wasn't super proud of. And the more and more I poured myself into my personal projects, those were the things that made me happy, made me proud. And looking back, I like those more than that project that this client, this client and I both forced our way through.
Right. I call that committee static. So there's usually a clear transmission of an idea that can happen between you and whoever the art director is on the project. And then the committee gets involved at some point, and committee static garbles the communication. And you can't quite make out, you can only hear every third word now because that's the only real clear part.
Let me tell you a committee static story. Just a little short sidebar story. So I used to work at a magazine society, which is what it was called. It was basically I was running a magazine, but it was a charity, and so it had a board. And so there was this whole structure and so on and so forth. Anyway, long story short, my chair broke. So my office chair broke.
Like your actual chair.
The actual chair broke.
I thought this was
No, it was an old chair. It broke. So I'm like, there's a meeting that night, coincidentally, and I'm like, hey, yeah, the chair broke, so we got to buy a new chair. And the committee is like, okay, well, we want proposals on three different types of chairs and all these things and this and that.
wow.
Bring them to the next meeting. We'll have a committee, and then we'll vote on the chairs, so on and so forth. Fast forward to like the next meeting a month later, and they're like, okay, in the minutes, it's like Johnson's going to report on the chair. I go, well, the chair broke, so I bought a new one. That's my report. They're like, well, what do you mean? You're supposed to bring all these quotes for chairs, and we're going to discuss the chair. I'm like, no, I'm not discussing chairs. I got to sit on a chair.
Right.
I went and bought a chair, and then I paid for it, and then I reimbursed myself from the petty cash, which I'm allowed to do, because it was under $100. And they're like, well, we got this. And I'm like, no. I go, we're not having a month-long, 2-month process by the time it's done.
Well, you're standing during this whole thing.
But this is, right. I was supposed to be standing. I'm supposed to put a magazine together. Like, it's ridiculous. But, that's committee, right? They want to spend 3-4 months to spend $100, buy a chair. You got to have how many meetings with how many people? Like, if you were paying those people, how much would it cost to talk about the chair?
Right.
It's just insanity.
I am not a sound engineer by any stretch of the imagination, nor, as has been, I think, underlined by any time I've self-recorded my own episodes. But I think about it sometimes like this. If you have your microphone, if you have 4 or 5 microphones, or you have all these different cables that have to go into one source, the more things that are inputting into that source, the more transmissions are coming in, the less likely you are to have a clear understanding of what's happening.
Too much noise.
Too much noise. That's the committee static.
Yeah.
Right? Book publishing often seems like it's by committee, but it's one at a time. So I might talk with my editor, and then I would talk with my publisher, and then I would talk with my marketing person, and then I would talk. And there is a committee involved, but since you're communicating a person at a time, the loss of transmission is much less than when you're dealing with a big company that has a number of stakeholders that all feel they must have a say before a decision is made.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's why, I love, we're all kind of in a similar shape of industry where we can be a little more agile. Like, a lot of us, go to conventions and sell our stuff in person to our demographic, to our customers, have online stores where we sell there. So, if I have a wonky idea for, doing a blank robot and then printing out a sticker sheet with his armor, and so people can build their own robot with stickers, I don't have to check with anybody. I can do that. I can test that out. God, if there was a committee behind that,
I can just think.
now I don't think it'd happen.
I'm that committee. I'm the one that always comes in and says, but what about this? What about this?
Yeah.
Books on tape will never work. What about this?
But it led us to so many
It
great
did.
things.
I now have my own personal tape because of Books on Tape.
Gentlemen, 2024, last time we talked about the specific things we were
Keeping us on track.
Yeah.
proud of from the year.
Yeah.
Gregory.
Well, I already said one of the things I'm proud of is that I didn't prioritize my career over my interpersonal relationships. And as a result, a number of people that I felt I could help, I did help. And then when I needed help, lo and behold, they showed up to help me in return. So it was very reciprocal in that way. From a strict project standpoint, I think I am maybe the most proud. Oh, neck and neck. It's like having 2 kids and deciding which one to love more that day. I have 2 projects that I'm very proud of. Once Lands, a collection of stories I did for The Shared World, which I illustrated and co-wrote with James Gillespie. Novel-length project, full collection, came out on time. We got it out into the world. And in my fiction work, it was my best-selling book of the year, having only been at 3 short events. So it really
Pull its weight.
Yeah,
For that's a little book.
for such a little book, really pulled its weight. So I'm very pleased with that. And then we did the impossible thing of going out to a abandoned sanatorium overlooking a lake in Nanette, and 25 people spent 10 days around the clock working on on a movie. We finished principal photography of that, and just today I saw what is likely to be picture lock on that film. Means all post-production is still to be done, related to some animation pieces and sound design and Foley and ADR and all that stuff still has to come. But the movie we set out to go and make, we made, and now it can be watched. And that is like, and gentlemen, it's not that bad. We did not a bad job. Okay, not a bad job making a movie.
Without further ado, it's time to start running!
I showed it to my son as a rough cut, who had seen nothing, my youngest son. And there was no music, there was no score, so I just turned my phone on to a John Carpenter score, and we watched it with the score playing in the background, so there was some music to like set some tone. And
I feel like cheating a little bit. You juiced your movie with steroids.
Juiced it with steroids for sure. But at the end of what is essentially the first act, I like paused it for a second to explain everything that was missing. Like, oh, we don't have ADR, and oh, we don't have, and the sound's not quite right yet. And, we'll do a color grade. And he interrupted me. He said, Dad, no, it's not terrible. It's not a terrible movie. You don't have to apologize. Like, he was sort of like, you don't have to apologize yet. I'm into it. And that was a really great, when you show somebody something with that many moving parts, not yet in its finished assembly, and you get some feedback. And if any of you with a teenager know, that feedback will not spare your feelings. This was really good. So I'm very proud of that. How about yourself, Lyndon?
No. I'm still leading. Justin.
Oh,
Okay.
deflecting, you mean?
We'll get to me. He's going to go to Jonathan first. He's going to talk about, first off, what he said he was going to do last year. No, I'm talking to you first. But no. Justin is going to talk about what things he's proud of. And then I'm going to hand you the mic, and you're going to talk about the things that you said you were going to do,
Oh, your failures.
whether or not you did it, and then talk about something that you were proud of. So I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. Justin.
I'm going to start with something I think like we all get to share in is we publish
Birth of your
I wondered if anyone would say dire beasts.
diaries. So yeah, we're not going to talk about New Kid too much on the podcast. Just yeah. If
I just wanted to take credit.
If I'm not as eloquent as usual, it's because I'm running on 4 to 5 hours of sleep for the last couple weeks. But we did Dire Beasts this year, which was what I'm most proud of was that we came up with a concept at Prairie Comics in 2023. Started constructing the idea for the project, started reaching out. And in 2024, we collected 14 artists, got them to do 10-page stories, published it in a book, like all within like the span of less than a year. We made a 136-page anthology, and it like turned out exactly how I pictured it in my mind.
And we crowdfunded it.
Yes.
We crowdfunded it. We got successful crowdfunding. We fulfilled our crowdfunding a little ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Despite a mail strike.
Well, just in time for the mail strike.
Right.
I think we're going to be right on time for fulfillment, but that won't be our fault.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, but well ahead of schedule. And while we're on the topic, Lyndon deserves some on-air credit for a whole bunch of somebody showed up to the Prairie Comics Festival Zine Fair to do local pickups.
Yeah.
And of course, I knew nothing about that. And so I looked him in the eye and I said, yes, it's downstairs. Or upstairs. Let me go get it. And then I came upstairs thinking like, oh my God, I got to get my act together. How am I going to do this? Open the box. Everything was set, prepped, ready to go. Lists, names, customer numbers, prepackaged books, everything they needed. Thanks to Lyndon. So
No. That's thanks to all of us. I had actually completely forgotten about it. We packaged that box on our fulfillment day, and then I sent out a message on Kickstarter saying, if you're a local pickup and you can't come during the week because we're here during business hours, you can come on a Saturday to the Zine Fair.
Yeah.
And I think I had asked you, Greg, are you going to be there? Yep. Okay. Can you do this? Yeah. Okay, great.
you did everything right.
And then I never thought about it again. So when Gregory came and said, good job on all this on the local pickup, I went, what are you talking about?
Which kind of like it adds the local pickup is part of like a free book event that's great that like a lot of these people were probably interested in like to begin with. So like putting those two things together, local pickup / awesome event.
Yeah.
Good. We should take credit like we planned it that way.
Well, Sam gets to take credit for the Zine Fair.
Yeah, she does.
Which is amazing.
She deserves that.
Yeah.
Jonathan.
So I'll start with the proud, and then I'll switch to the other thing. Because what I'm proud about, one, I'll parrot what Gregory says about the movie, which I'm involved in, all that same stuff. But two, I and my collaborators, which are mostly Gregory and Lyndon and some other people, Scott and Matt, and so on.
Talk about.
We between a bunch of people and myself, I completed work on not one but two big graphic novel projects. One, a 5-chapter, like 5-issue graphic novel. The other, 12-issue graphic novel. Now, not all that work was done in the last year, but a lot of it was done in the last year and finalized. We'll see exactly how that stuff comes out when and so on. But, that was a big and kind of invisible accomplishment for me. And then in terms of, the failures, unfortunately, although, I feel like I accomplished a whole lot in this last year, none of it was the stuff I planned to accomplish. None of it.
And may I point out, Jonathan, having listened to last year's episode, you said the exact thing. You accomplished so much stuff, but nothing you planned. Then you set a plan, and now you didn't follow it, but you did accomplish
it. Is exactly the same thing, and I would say the same. I was saying it at lunch earlier. Is exactly the same problem that I had last year that I was hoping to resolve last year, or at least start resolving more fully than I have. Which is, I just don't have a good system in place. To Justin's point earlier, I've got too many people coming in to my orbit in a way that is disruptive to my schedule. And it's not their fault. It's, my fault in not having a system to deal with these people in a non-disruptive fashion. I still can't really go on a vacation for a week without something falling apart. Or someone coming at me to, hey, you got to do this, ask this question, blah, 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 and so that's all, that's not on them, but on, my lack of, real business systems, at least in the sense that, because I'm kind of the opposite of Justin. I kind of went from being totally independent to like starting to rely and involve myself and collaborate with people, as opposed to, moving in the other direction.
You were saying orbits. And so I want to just talk briefly about celestial mechanics for a moment and then reply it back to you. Did you know that when the Voyager spacecraft went zipping around Jupiter, it caused Jupiter, as a result of that exchange of mass, to have a slightly less rotation somewhere 1 trillion years from now? There is always an exchange of energy when things orbit each other. And so depending how big the mass is, you can either notice it right away or not at all. So your problem is just, Jonathan, that you're simply not big enough yet to not be affected by the things that are orbiting.
No, it's a funny way to put it, but that's exactly the case. My joke about this, I was talking to my creative writing students this morning about this exact thing, actually. But my joke about it, because I like to remind my creative writing students that, at the stage of their career where they are typically, it's all these frustrations that they have are things that later on they're going to miss. So they're like so frustrated that no one wants to publish their work. They're so frustrated that no one cares about this and that. But I like to say to them, like, this is like the time when you're the most free because no one wants this thing from you. No one wants that thing from you. And yeah, it frustrates you that no one wants these things from you. But later on, when you're me, you're going to be frustrated. Everyone wants these things from you. And, I always like to say, like, what happens is you become a victim of your small success. And you end up being, I like to say, like, you end up being the, assistant to a slightly successful writer.
But you're the same person.
But you're the writer that
Yeah.
Yeah, you add more hats as you go along.
Yeah, plenty of professional authors I know who sort of broke through to, that classic bestseller, but like a bestseller in a way that actually shows up in their bank account. Found the big lament being, now you're just a person who professionally answers emails instead of writing books.
On your marks, get set.
Killian, I'll be back.
Only in a rerun.
Justin, do you think you successfully slowed down on going to conventions last year?
That was one of your goals.
One of your goals. Yeah, you said that going to shows, 23 or something shows, was too much of a full-time job.
Yeah. So I have thoughts on this. Is it my turn yet?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go, Lyndon?
No,
first?
please,
No,
go
okay.
ahead.
So I think like one of my
One
goals.
of you is the actual co-host, and one of you.
I'm just the filler.
So something that kind of became more on my brain radar in the last year, and I've been thinking about like going into this year, is when I started doing conventions and I was like just ravenous for Comic-Cons and success and pumping out as much work into my portfolio as I could. My go-to kind of painting size would be like a 12 hour to maybe 20 hour painting. And like I would do 30 shows a year and try to have a new piece for every single convention. And that was kind of like the goalpost that kept me productive and on track and just nonstop going. And as I've kind of gotten
Older?
a bit more experienced, a bit older, I'm enjoying the longer, more involved projects more and more. So instead of doing 35 paintings a year and just pumping them out as quick as I can, just to have that new thing for the ravenous fans, I'm enjoying the slow drip of a 70-hour painting or a longer book project or just kind of taking my time with my paintings and not kind of just rushing to that finish line to have the new thing go. And especially like looking back at my portfolio, like I kind of gloss over those quick, pinup paintings almost from my earlier career. It's those paintings that took weeks. That's what makes me proud, and that's what I want to do more of. And just kind of having that internal conversation with myself that it's okay not to have a new painting every time you show up in a city or every time you show up in an event. Like those big, bombastic, more involved paintings are the ones that are going to last through the years and make you proud looking back. So that's kind of my looking back at 2024. What I did a lot less paintings, but the paintings that I did do were a lot more involved and a lot prouder, and just kind of carrying that forward, not
And as an
chasing
outside
the
observer,
quick fix.
may I say, a lot more level ups in your overall approach to color, design, composition. Like
They're more complicated. They're more challenging. So
Yep.
you're learning more.
Yeah. They're like, it shows. Your growth is visible on the sheets. Like, very much so.
It's so interesting too because for such a long time, you have lamented before on the show about needing new things at every show and how disappointed people are when they show up and
And I
there
think
isn't something new.
just have to come to terms with that when people.
Or are you big enough now that those orbits don't slow you down?
Or I'm doing less shows, so maybe it's not as obvious. But like that still nags at me when like if I'm going to a new show and there's not a. It's always so disappointing when you go to a city that you haven't been to in a year or two, and they're like, "What's new?" And you're like, "Here are my new books, and here's my new stuff," and they're kind of like, "That's it, huh?"
When I was,
My God.
what I say about stuff like that though is it's none of your business. Like I was saying this to students earlier this morning because I started this new class, and one of the first things I teach them is you got to really understand what to mind your own business, and that means not just like what is your business in that entrepreneurial sense, but it's just in terms of your process or your just concerns in your career and your life. And it's hard to understand what is and isn't your business because, for example, being good is not your business. Your business is, doing it and getting it done. You want it to be good. You're working to become better. But whether people think it's good or think it's bad is none of your business. Whether they're happy because this piece is awesome or they're sad because you don't have something new is none of your business. Your business is, as you say, kind of focusing on the project until it's done or giving it what it needs or taking the time it needs.
They call it the invisible hand of the market for the reason because you can't see it until after it's already happened, right? There's no way to stop it once the market force.
But also like your business is going to the show and putting that painting up. It's not your business whether or not they buy it.
Right.
You want it maybe to happen, but it's none of your business on a certain level.
Oh, I looked over at Lyndon. There was this awkward pause where he and I each wondered who's in charge here.
Yes.
Who is
Host Gregory GMB Kamichuk.
Okay, I have a few things to say. On the topic of last year's goals versus this year's accomplishments. If you are a regular listener to the show and you are also a creative person who is doing their best to create a body of work, who cares how it turned out? Like, really, it doesn't matter. And there is a lot of New Year's hype that goes into feeling bad about what you didn't accomplish. We're all able to make fun of each other about it because we're pretty confident in the fact that we're going to keep trying no matter what. But there are plenty of people that I know personally and tangentially, and a few listeners who have reached out, who are right on the cusp of like, maybe I should quit because I can't accomplish my goals, as if your goal is somehow a contract with yourself. It's not, right? You're just a living person. You're a living being who is doing your absolute best to try and get stuff done. And the world is full of distractions, tragedies, and things that you have no control over. So if you're worried that you didn't accomplish your goals, I want you to first make a list of all the things that happened that had nothing to do with you. They were beyond your control completely. And weigh that against the things you felt like you couldn't accomplish, right? So just let's make that as a caveat before I say.
I was just gonna say, just to connect to that, like I think part of the minding your own business thing is exactly that. It's like figuring out, well, what is in your control? You know, whether or not, you know, people like your stuff is to some degree, you know, the zeitgeist, taste, which changes. They might like it one year and hate it the next year. That's got nothing to do with you.
City to city, year to year, tastes change.
Well, and you know, your own taste might change. You might like the thing you're working on now and hate it later. You know, so at a certain level, like that stuff's outside of your control in the sense of like you don't control your audience, you don't control so many things. If you're trying to get published, you don't control whether they take it, but like what do you control and what's your concern and your business in that sense, right? You control whether you submit the thing to a publisher, you control whether you get it done, blah blah blah. So kind of to your point, I would say it's a hard lesson, but goals I think sort of fall in that camp in some level because, you know, I make goals and I kind of believe in having goals, but I also, I think, acknowledge that it in some ways wrong-headed, because really what the real concern you should have is, you know, do you have a good process? Can you make your process better? Can you focus more on your process? The outcome is something you need to detach yourself from. I mean, I have a hard time with it and I like to have like certain outcomes, but I do kind of abstractly recognize, even though it's hard, the more, and maybe it's just, you know, age and slight wisdom, but like the older I get, the more I realize like my goals are great to kind of get myself moving, but they don't really matter. What matters is like that process. And it's tough because, as you say, you guys were Lyndon and Gregory were talking on a podcast a little while ago that I was listening to. And they were talking about I was listening to this podcast and Gregory quoted the Bhagavad Gita, and I was like, I was literally thinking in my head, oh, I wish I was there. I would quote the Bhagavad Gita. And then Gregory did it. I felt
That's
so
why you're
simpatico with you. But the quote was, you know, you're entitled to your labor, but not the fruits of your labor. And it's a hard thing to really understand, but it is, you know, a very true that, you know, you really only have the process, and it's easy to get caught up in the outcomes. And to some degree, goal making is that.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
like
you should love that process more than the outcome.
I love the song. The song's part of me. And I'm gonna make it part of you.
I like making goals, but I do it with a grain of salt now because I recognize as I do it that probably it's not in my control whether I meet a lot of those goals. But the process is in my control.
Here's a direct example. One Signs is a book I had the best time making. That might be the only good part of it once it hits the market, right? The likelihood that people will read your book, like your book, that it could catch on is so small. Those odds are so stacked against you that you'd better like the labor of it. One of the great paradoxes of this studio environment, I think, is that we are addicted to set plans and to nimble actions at the same time. Like we will make Like for this year, we're going to set this ironclad plan. We're going to attempt to accomplish it. And then if it starts to come off the rails, and there's a different thing that's working, we immediately just unload one train and load it on the other and carry on. We don't stress about whether we
Freedom of committee helps with that.
Yeah, we don't have that committee static getting in the way. We just go, oh, that's not working. Let's do this instead. Oh, that is working now. Let's do more of that.
Yeah.
Do we run the risk, though, as we get bigger projects, we get projects that have a little bit more, for lack of a better word, market penetration, right? It's reaching more people and you're more beholden to them, of losing that nimbleness if we're not careful.
Is that a goal, though?
That's what I'm asking. Discuss.
I think, and it's something that I admire about both of you, Gregory and Justin, you like to be very in control of your projects. And I think that that's a good thing because you're maintaining not your brand, but like the quality of your work. You take pride in the quality of your work. And a lot of the friction that I think we've discussed on the show before comes from when too many people are trying to stick their hands in the food.
And it tastes like all the chefs.
Yeah, and it's starting to change the flavor a bit. So I think there are certain respects in which it's really good to be quick and nimble. And if there's something that I want to get better at moving forward with myself, it's starting to have some trust in other people in part of the projects. And you especially come to terms with that when we're dealing with like group Kickstarter projects. Mm-hmm. You have to kind of trust that other people are doing their job and sort of put some trust in the process, I guess.
But it worked.
It worked.
Specifically with Dire Beasts, because we named someone a book boss. We set a really clear goal for you're out if you don't meet these conditions, and you're in. And those were pretty simple conditions. There's a deadline. If you miss it, you're out. And we're just going to make the book without you. And as a result, nobody wanted to miss the deadline, let anyone else down. But if they had, we also wouldn't have held a grudge. Like, life gets in the way. So when we told people that a number of times, like, if you can't make it, we're doing another one, don't stress. Right? So you got to have that cutoff.
To what you were saying, Gregory, about, that finding something that works and becoming beholden to it. Dire Beasts, I think, works so well that we're going to stick with that exact same plan in the next anthology, right? We're going to keep the format. We're going to keep the black and white, the page count, like everything just kind of clicked. So now we're kind of locked into that format for the next plan.
So the plan is there, and then the nimbleness is like I can put whatever story I want in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that's been the hardest part, deciding what the next anthology is about.
And yeah, I think we're still muddling around with that. What's that going to be? But yeah.
You know what's funny is, and I love talking about Dire Beasts because through that book released in October, right? We've now fulfilled the Kickstarter, but the Kickstarter ended. We got books. The book was real in October, and I spent a lot of December and November sort of feeling like I didn't do anything this year. And then I looked back.
It's ridiculous.
It's how it felt.
Yeah.
And I think it's because when I finish a book, it's done. Like I'm just on to the next thing. And if the next thing isn't working out, I feel like I'm failing. But I ended the last year's episode of this talking about how I wanted to release Hero Man and we were going to travel and take it internationally.
Check.
And like those things happened and we released the first part of There Was Another Life. We did that for the Calgary show. That came out and then Dire Beasts came out. And so I felt like I did nothing this year, but then I had like 3 books that came out. But I think the frustration is because it's hard to know what's going to happen in the future and sort of what's the next book that you're working on. What is the next thing that feels real?
And I think that's part of the joy and pain of a full-time creative career is that you have to decide things for yourself. If you're in a regular, like when I had a regular job when I was teaching, I know I have to show up on the 6th and I know I have to teach so many hours and I know there'll be this many committees and I know there'll be this many things. And there's like a certain, like you're going to relax into how much work you have already. Someone else has made that decision. But you have to, if you're full-time creative, decide all those things for yourself. And there's no way of knowing if they'll work. So maybe that is where some of that is coming from.
Something I've been working on lately that is, it really encompasses a lot of what we're talking about here, is I've been putting together my newest art book, which is everything that I've done since the last art book came out. And it has been like the best tool for like an overview of my progress and also a roadmap of where I want to go next, because it's like 150 pages of the like stuff I've been doing kind of spread out into like work in progress and half developed stuff and finished stuff and the progress of how that went. And through that, like since
Is it all isometric?
a lot of the new stuff is, because it's going towards my next graphic novel as well. But yeah, it's been I've put together like the plan, like the wireframes, the rough sketches for like 6 new pieces, just because I laid out my last art book and like looking at past projects and then having to type about them and what like they made me feel and how they come about, like sparked an idea for something else kind of in that same vein. So I jot it all out, plan it out in the art book, and then move on. And so I have this like amazing roadmap. And so what I'm kind of getting to is, if you're a professional artist and have been like thinking about doing an art book, God, it's been like the most fulfilling book project
To lay it out.
And part in because what you were saying, like it reminds you of the things you've accomplished, and it's just this great now physical document of my like plan moving forward.
May I also say that your brain, this is often brought up by psychologists, your brain doesn't know the difference between the memory of chocolate and eating the chocolate now. If you really dwell on it, if you're totally introspective about the last time you ate chocolate, your mouth will water, your brain will be certain it's eating chocolate. It can't tell the difference as far as your engrams go. So organizing your artistic life, you get to relive all of the work and doing the work in that very short span of time and bring it all front of mind, and then probably makes it much easier to then plan some new elements, new pieces.
When my daughter Jessie was younger, one of the things, to your point, Lyndon, I'm very much of the same way, where like I do something and move on with life, and like it's not great for me in a lot of ways. One is I don't market things enough, but two is like I don't like realize I've done it. I don't feel a sense of accomplishment.
You
I'm
forget
just
about that
moving
accomplishment.
on.
Yeah.
So when she was younger, I used to make a point of, anytime I would accomplish something, like put out a book or something that I felt was like a significant accomplishment, I would take her out for like sushi or a fancy dinner or something to celebrate. And
Ceremonialize it.
just because I wanted to, not because I felt like, I would ceremonialize it. And it wasn't even because I felt like I need to celebrate this accomplishment, is that I wanted to model celebrating your accomplishment. So that at least, even if I wasn't going to do it for real, at least, I could fake it well enough that she could do it for real.
The great and powerful.
When she grows up.
Americans love television. They wean their kids on it. Listen, they love game shows. They love wrestling. They love sports, violence. So what do? We give them what they want.
I think we all get that, where it's like, you look back the last couple of weeks, like, what have I done the last couple of weeks? I haven't done anything. But if you
Been playing Baldur's Gate.
that's it. Which gives you that.
Okay, some of us haven't done anything.
Video games are bad for that. That's false sense of accomplishment. But I take screenshots a lot as I'm working, like halfway through a project. I'm always taking like screenshots just on my computer so at the very end of it, I can show the progress shots and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll just kind of like go back and like see what January last year. I'll look at all the screenshots for January last year to remind myself, like, oh no, you didn't just do anything. Like look at all these things you did.
It's funny, and I think it's because of
Your
our
photo
group
reel?
chat, right?
Yeah.
We are screen, and often I will send, if Justin and I are not in the studio together, I'll send like new work, and he'll have a great note about color or about composition or whatever, and we'll just bounce it back and forth. And so same thing, I have folders on my
Unprompted. He's not asking for this. I just criticize.
Yeah, he just criticizes unprompted. But what it does is it creates these long visual essays of the labor, which really can help sometimes.
And that's the art book. But having to write about it as well. Like, here's the piece, and then writing that little article of like why you did this, what it made you feel, what you were hoping to accomplish. Like, I couldn't recommend it more for artists out there. If you're thinking about doing an art book, do it.
I just get bullied in that group chat for not watching the right movies, according to Justin.
Yeah, watch Leon.
You haven't seen The Professional?
And it continues.
Oh my goodness.
Lyndon's, he's squeezing out of it.
Oh yeah. What failed last year, Lyndon? And I'm looking forward to.
Okay, well, there.
I just want to help
Yes.
set Lyndon up for this.
Oh no.
I want to set Lyndon up. Dear listener, one thing that you don't know about Lyndon, actually, if you've listened to more than 3 episodes with him, you probably do. He is quick to underrepresent himself and his efforts. So before he goes on a long tirade of his failures where it seems like he hasn't accomplished anything at all, I want you to know that he has been doing a lot of stuff that he is superstitious about sharing with you. That is actually good news also. So just take with a grain of salt his imminent lament.
You haven't done anything until it's done.
Well, also we've talked about it on the podcast as well. When you say I plan on, losing 5 pounds, I plan on start working out, and people tell you, "Oh, good for you, good job," and then you get that dopamine rush of accomplishment
sometimes
before you've done the thing.
Yeah.
And I think we all recognize that we talk about this project that we're really excited about. We get that sense of accomplishment before we've earned it. So I think we're all very careful about that, and that's good practice.
Okay, so I'll talk about my, what I was hoping to have done at the end of the last episode, the going into 2024 stuff, and then how things turned out. But I will need both of yours support in recognizing that life comes first. Because
Listener, I want you to picture that Justin, Lyndon, and I are now all holding hands in a great triangle,
Swaying back.
swaying back and forth.
Okay, so I'll start with the easy stuff. At the end of 2023, I was hoping that by the end of 2024, I'd be living in a house. I am living in a house. We bought our house. Yeah, we worked on some stuff. I'm living in a house. I also made it very clear that there are times when things are out of your control. There are decision makers that you have to get through to accomplish certain goals, and you can't, unless you're Justin, and you can't control it when the time comes that they say yes or no. So one of the goals that I really wanted to accomplish in 2024 was that I wanted to pitch comic projects to some of the largest comic publishers. And I did those things and got soundly rejected. You can't control that.
That's an accomplishment.
That's
got to collect those rejections.
Collect the rejections. Studio motto. Rejections.
There are projects that I'm working on with Steven that we are still working on, that we may have hoped to be further along.
And are you loving the process, as J-Ball has recommended?
Well, when I'm involved in the process, I'm loving the process.
Okay, good.
But I know from talking to Steven, I know you're listening to this episode, it's completely okay that things have gone slower than we thought. Like, you can't control when life comes first. At the end of the last episode, Gregory actually talked about how he wanted to get a bunch of things done and life came first. That's just how it is. Before Jonathan leaves, and I'll come back to me here, he needs to talk about where he wants to be in a year.
This is short because I just want to do the same thing I said last year. I want to be able to take a vacation for a week and no one fucking talks to me. And I don't get any messages and I don't have to deal with anything and things are going smooth. And it's not even their fault. It's my fault that I haven't got those kind of systems set up properly. But again, it is a part of the process. I need to refine my process in that sense, where I need to kind of take myself out of the process a bit more than I have.
Okay, so
on. So again, it's very much the same things I'm trying to work on.
Speak directly to Jonathan Ball of 2026. A final thought for Jonathan Ball, so that a year from now when you're listening like we did this year, you're speaking to yourself.
Well, John, I don't expect everything to be super smooth, but I want you to at least be able to disappear for a week, and it's not a problem, and you're not, stressing about it, and and even if it isn't a problem, you're not stressing about it, whether or not it's going to be a problem or not. you need to be able to take that break mentally as well as physically, and also in terms of just the systems and the processes. It just needs to be running more smoothly in your absence than it does in your presence, perhaps. Even if it's not perfectly, at least on a minimal level.
The last thing I said in our recap episode last year was how much I was looking forward to working on Arcbound.
Oh my God, what a kick.
Dear listener, if you have gone to the comic book store and purchased issue number 2, which I think is currently on the stands at the time of this recording, you will notice my name is not on that book.
However, it's a pretty good book. You should check it out. By Snyder,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was out of your control.
And that was,
Tom Hardy.
from what I've been told, unless they were being very, very polite, out of my control, because the publisher of the book has an in-house letterer that they brought on board. Out of my control. So that is sort of the epitome of what 2024 felt like from, and to go back to something Gregory and I have talked about before, a aspiring professional standpoint, which is the idea of breaking into the wider comics publishing market, was what one step forward, 2 steps back. But that said, what came out of that is I did get to letter Death Fight Forever, which I haven't talked about on the podcast before, but is an upcoming graphic novel by Andrew MacLean of Headlopper. And that happened because at the time I was still working on Arcbound, and so I had a little bit more cred to my name, and I ended up working on this book that is actually coming out, unless they back out of it again. Just kidding. And that's been great. So when I look forward to 2025, I'm, like we said, what we were talking about earlier, I always look forward to what are the new things that are going to be on the table when we go to shows in 2025.
That goalpost keeps me going, like fantasizing about, like the big one of the year is usually Calgary is our first big one of the show. It's huge convention in Canada, like 100,000 people-ish. We can bring all our stuff because it's drivable for us. So it's kind of like the first big show of the year. And usually around this time of year, I start to like fantasize about what my booth is going to look like. What's going to be the new...
What's the new big thing?
What's the new big thing?
Guys, and I have a booth at last again. after
you have that security of a big, and it's a big one. Yes. You have a big booth.
Oh my God.
And we're all in the big convention center.
How about the light?
So I look forward to what are the things that are going to be on the table this year. And, it's possible that there'll be fewer projects where I am writing the book. But there are some very big projects that my name will hopefully be on and that I will have copies of. Death Fight Forever being one. The project that, one of the projects we spoke about earlier that Gregory, you and Jonathan and I have worked on with Zach.
We're allowed to name it. Last Breeds.
Last Breeds.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's not. We're not.
We've been dancing around it for so long on
that
the
we
show.
have to. It's not such a big project that we have to keep it secret. It's been tangentially announced by Gungnir already.
Okay.
So that is why I'm allowed to say it.
Potentially Eye Collector.
Yeah.
Potentially The Year Away.
Yeah.
Like there are some new things that might still happen from the convention side of things that it's okay when the aspiring professional side of things slows down. And it took me a really long time to come to terms with that this year. I think that was part of the haze that was hanging over me through a lot of my more recent Super Pulp Science appearances, that dark cloud that would sweep in and bring everyone else down.
That's part of the journey, right? Like we all had to go through that of, when you're starting out your career, like nothing seems to be getting you any traction anywhere. And I think that lasts a while, and you kind of have to, it's a hurdle you have to overcome and get comfortable with.
And it can feel so excruciatingly slow because your friends, your families, your loved ones, they're asking you all the time, like how things are going. And you want to give them feedback that they can understand. And people who are, for lack of a better term, civilians, don't understand all the back end that goes into a project being made. So only it being out is real news. And so that can be very painful. One project that I'm very proud of, very happy to announce, but it's actually won't come out until 2026.
So far.
I know, is Blood Letters with Ariel Gordon. Her and I,
I'm
we
excited about that.
finished that project. We have an agreement in principle with the publisher. That is why the date is pushed to 2026, because then it'll have proper every bookstore distribution. You know, you can get it anywhere that books are sold. A legitimate book from a legitimate publisher,
Mhm.
right? Which is part of my system has been for the last few years.
Vanity Press over here.
No, one. Oh my goodness. Yes, that is what people call it.
Yeah.
But one for them, two for me, right? So that if a book comes out, it's through regular channels, your next two things should come out direct from you. Because the margins being so thick in normal publishing, you want it wide as possible. So if the next two, you have the wider margin, it's it works. It keeps
Also,
lights
the
on.
production schedule.
Yeah.
Like your next one thing will come out in 2 years.
Yeah.
You have more than enough time to put out two things yourself before then.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
In fact, I have tangentially 5 things for the calendar year to
Yep.
be in production, and 2 of those to come up for sure this year, and then 3 of them to be already ready for the year
I
after.
kind of love doing that, like kind of stacking your accomplishments. Like I have a couple things finished right now that I'm not like I'm holding on to just because in my mind, January and February are always kind of quieter months
Yep.
where everybody's hunkered down. You know, nobody's putting things up on the store is kind of useless right now because Christmas is over.
Yeah.
People need to just recover and do their own thing for a bit. So I hibernate and work. And when like March, April hits, that's when I start like unveiling all the stuff that have gone away and worked. And so I love that, like doing, like accomplishing those things and holding on to them to like release later and being okay with that. And that comes back to that being like a little more seasoned and being okay with not the second you finish, not showing it.
Yeah.
Waiting until the right time.
Instant gratification.
Yeah.
I will also mention, because it sounds almost too big for its britches, that list that I just made. I want the dear listener to understand that if I'm printing 50 of something, 500 of something, or 5,000 of something, to me, each one is one project, and I'm as thrilled by its accomplishment. The reach it has in the larger retail world is almost of no significance to me. Those things are a different hat I wear to figure out how and where it goes. And often it comes down to all the pitching we do and what ends up where, and what I'm printing 50 of and what I'm printing 5,000 of has everything to do with who said yes. But I'm as thrilled to have done the labor on each one. And so if it means I have to just print it as a weird little side zine and I'll just sell out of it over the course of a year and never have another one,
Yeah.
that's as exciting to me as a book that is now perennial.
Even if it can't get in there, put it in your art book and talk about how this half-baked idea might not see the light of day, but then at least you get to show it again.
Gregory doesn't make art books.
He did.
I did. Well, Samantha Biko is the reason I have one art book. And I think as soon as she went on to much bigger and greener pastures, then my ability to make art books went down. Because I'm so interested in making the new thing that putting the old thing together doesn't work. And she put that other one together for me. So
And I
that's
think
what made it work.
You're missing out on the joy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm
Maybe-
making a note to myself.
Start plopping things in there. You'll get what I'm talking about.
Start plopping.
Start
making the
plopping
note.
things. Yeah.
Okay, so as I work my way down to the bottom of my notes that I had made about last year's episode, and I already touched on this before, but I'm going to use this to wrap us up. It says, I released 3 new books. I feel like a total failure. I am not a real creative.
See previous comment about Lyndon.
And I think that was because, again, in that fugue state, there was so much, why am I doing this? I have no drive to make anything new. Clearly, I was never legit to begin with. But then the next line says, what do I want in the new year? I haven't figured that part out yet. There's nothing under that. So I'm going to pass this along to Gregory and then Justin, and then I'm going to try and come up with something to wrap this up.
Okay.
So this is at the end of 2025, early 2026. What you're proud of is kind of what we're...
This is what you're hoping You're talking to yourself in a year.
Okay.
What do you hope for in the next year, and what do you have to say to your future self?
You want to go first, or?
I'm making some brief notes. I'm gonna.
So that
I'm
means
gonna
no, it's you.
Who should go?
Okay, so a big, I think, good, like the core of like my artistic drive is when I see pieces, projects that people have done, and it makes me jealous. Like makes me like angry, jealous / inspired. Like, oh my god, this guy did that. I wish I had done something like that this person had accomplished. And so by the end of 2025, 2026, that's what I want to see from myself. Not exactly, not quantity, quality. And I think that's where I was kind of getting with like not having a new piece as quick as possible for every convention back like I used to do. Taking my time, really soaking in the process of making the pieces. They take as long as they take, really put like my heart into it. And so at the end of next year, less art, but the art that I make is going to, stand the test of time a lot more than what I've done previously.
Depth over width.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. That's a good. Do you have a statement to say to future Justin?
Justin, in 1 year.
Hope you're sleeping better, buddy.
That's probably fair.
That's fair. That's very fair. Okay, so in the year to come, one of the things that I am going to need to be aware of is how many different projects that have very different scopes because they have very different mediums of release are going to eat up a lot of my time. I have not been involved in the release of an independent movie at this level before. And I want to be involved, as you said, get a little bit obsessed with being in control of some things. This one's kind of nice in that I get to sit next to the king. I don't have to take the blame, but I can whisper, I can be the Grimer worm tongue.
The worm tongue,
Yeah, right. So that part is going to take up a bunch of time, but I also have the musical film related project Love You to Death, which we normally do every year in February. We're doing a hiatus here because I'm going to involve more of the composers and more of the people who helped make the event really big and successful in creating it. The first year it succeeded, we had a wild idea and we were surprised. The second year it succeeded, as far as I'm concerned, is because everyone involved. And so I didn't want the third year to just be everyone doing what I said again. I want to get everyone involved in helping design
More of a
it.
collaboration.
More of a collaboration.
Yeah.
And we had to settle on the facts that takes so much more time because we want to avoid committee static. And so in order to get it done well, we can't do it quickly.
Step one, buy chairs.
We have enough chairs.
We do.
So that's something that is definitely on my mind. I have so many book projects, some that are going to be reprinted and some that are going to be printed for the first time that are coming out this year. Part of it is clearing the backlog. I put on the front of my day book a big picture of a snail, glued it on there to remind myself that I'm carrying a lot and I'm allowed to go slowly. So this is sort of what's on my mind. So if I'm going to speak to Gregory of 2026, is that it doesn't matter how far you got, as long as you didn't drop too many of those things you agreed to carry.
Enjoy the process, like J-Ball says.
Yeah. And if you're covered in slime, that's a bonus too.
This is such a good way to wrap up the episode, because I feel like that takeaway is that we're a lot more chill going into this year.
Because it's not a laundry list of accomplishments. It's
Yeah.
more like we should take our time and enjoy things.
Yeah, because I said this to Gregory earlier. I feel like after the 2-week holiday, we had a holiday, Justin. I don't know if you're aware. The rest of us
It's
in
been
the
great.
world.
Yeah, no.
Okay. I feel like after the 2 weeks of holiday, yesterday was the first day that I woke up relaxed. And I don't know if this statement is going to be short-lived and I'm just in this post-chill glow or that's going to change. But I also feel like for 2025, it would be nice to just relax a little more and just chip away at things. I don't know what the major projects are going to be this year that I'm going to be working on. I'd like to go to a couple new shows. I'd like to icon people. If you're listening, I'd like to come back to I'd like to get into icon.
Winnipeg's anime convention, really, really good one.
Yeah, I'd like to go to the Edmonton show. There's just a couple new things that I'd like to try out and work on, and I'll keep sending out pitches to different publishers and probably getting rejected from them, but maybe I don't. Who knows? And I hope in a year from now I can just tell myself, I hope you relaxed a little bit this year and you're not you didn't spend the last 2 months of the year thinking you were a complete failure and questioning the purpose of your existence every day. And maybe
Part of being an artist, though, I think.
as part of being an artist,
Writer, artist.
Okay, so dear listener,
Crippling self-doubt.
maybe you're allowed to start playing Baldur's Gate again.
no, dear listener, no, it's correct. Every year I set, usually around the Christmas time, but it sort of coincides with New Year's, the notion of a idea, concept, idiom that I'm going to meditate on all year.
Idiom, sir.
Right, yeah, idioms. And mine this year, I'll share with you. I don't think I've ever shared with you before those things, but this is the one, and because it pertains to what we discussed today. And mine this year, my idiom to think about and meditate on is it's the dose that makes the poison. And reminding myself that too much of anything makes it bad for you. And so you have to have a little bit more balance. You have to have a little bit more objectivity in what you think is success or failure. And so the dose makes the poison, dear listener. This has been our 2025 year in review, I guess is how I'd say that. This is Jim B. Kamichuk encouraging you all to join the fight and make comics.